With Max Holloway defending his BMF title at UFC 318, I thought it'd be fun to go through and create a BMF title fight for every weight class. So that's what we're doing in this video. If you enjoy, hit the like button, subscribe. If you have some different picks, some different matchups, would love to hear them down below. But we are going to start off at heavyweight, and my BMF title fight would be between Tom Aspinall and Derek Lewis. For Tom Aspinall, I think he has been the rightful champion since November of 2023. People seem to forget he took that interim title fight on short notice. The original matchup, right? Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic. Sergey Pavlovich was the backup fighter. Now, he might have been doing that for no reason because I don't know if either of those dudes would have actually fought him if the other pulled out. We obviously saw that Stipe didn't. But like Tom Aspinall was not involved in that fight at all. He was not fighting on that card. He was not the backup fighter. Sergey was at least preparing, and so when Jon Jones gets hurt, they call up Tom Aspinall. On a couple weeks' notice, he agrees to take on the very dangerous, very scary Sergey, who I think was on a 5 or 6 fight, like round 1 knockout streak. Aspinall goes out there, nukes him in a couple of minutes, wins the belt. He was also willing to defend the interim title and did successfully, which is something that you really shouldn't have to do. He did it. He has 8 wins in the UFC, 7 are round 1 finishes. He's extremely dangerous, hits very hard. I think he's the hardest hitter at heavyweight. And so Tom Aspinall should be in this fight. And then for Derek Lewis, got to throw the knockout king in here. He's put together some pretty impressive longevity. Debuted in 2014, still beating like an up-and-coming prospect at 40 years old in 2025. He has fought a who's who at heavyweight: Daniel Cormier, Francis Ngannou, JDS, Mark Hunt, Roy Nelson, Alexander Volkov, Cyril Gane, Sergey Pavlovich, Jailton Almeida. He's fought pretty much everyone, and he's always game, right? He might not win all these matchups, but if you're going to pay him, he's going to go in there, and he is going to throw bombs. At light heavyweight, we've seen this fight twice already, but I do think the BMF would be between Alex Pereira and Yuri Prochazka. Pereira's really kind of emerged as like a lifesaver for the UFC. He got bumped up to the main event with that Jon Jones pullout, so he main events against Yuri and that card, UFC 295, UFC 300. They need a main event. Who do they call? Alex Pereira. Then he takes a short notice main event against Yuri Prochazka 2 months later. It is unheard of for a champion to step up, defend their belt on short notice. Not for Alex Pereira. He did that. In a span of 11 months, he fought in 4 title fights. All of them were main events, pay-per-view headliners. He has to be in this BMF matchup. And then for Yuri Prochazka, he's always game to fight anyone. He's received a bonus in all 5 of his UFC wins. He's going to go out there. He's going to fight at a crazy high pace. Doesn't matter what you hit him with. If he's not unconscious, he is going to continue fighting. And I also think he deserves credit for taking that rematch against Alex Pereira, because like that was his second crack. If he loses that, he's pretty far out of the title picture, and he was still game to take that opportunity. At middleweight, I think the BMF fight should be between Dricus du Plessis and Robert Whittaker. This is also a fight we've seen, but I do think these are the guys that should be in there. For DDP, he's just proven he is willing to fight anyone. He is like actively sought out the Khamzat Chimaev matchup. He hears the fans want it. He hears that people think Khamzat's the boogeyman, the guy to potentially beat him, and he wants that challenge. He's also managed to make his last 2 opponents cry, which I think has to count for something here in this debate. And then for Robert Whittaker, I feel like he's underrated in like the overall BMF discussions. Maybe it's because he's just like such a nice dude, but he's fought pretty much every relevant middleweight in the last 7 years. He had 2 super fun wars against Yoel Romero. He's consistently turned back top contenders: Darren Till, Jared Cannonier, Calvin Gastelum, Marvin Vettori. Those were all guys who were probably a win away from a title fight until they had to run into Robert Whittaker. And then I think also just look at his last couple of bookings. Agreed to fight Khamzat, something he didn't need to do. Khamzat pulls out. He accepts an unranked Ikram Alaskarov on a week's notice, and we can do revisionist history and say, oh yeah, he just ran through Ikram. It was an easy fight. The betting odds were very close on that fight. So he's taking a tough, like relatively unknown fighter to the casual fan base on a week's notice. That fight did pretty much nothing for him. He still took the opportunity, stayed in the main event spot. And then at that point, he once again agreed to fight Khamzat, something he didn't need to do. He could have fought a higher ranked guy, a much easier opponent, and he still was willing to take that Khamzat Chimaev fight. Robert Whittaker 100% belongs in a 185 BMF fight. Now at welterweight, this might be controversial. I have Jack Della Maddalena versus Ian Gary. I think people are going to agree with JDM, probably strongly disagree with Ian Gary. But for JDM, he had the crazy comeback win against Gilbert Burns with the broken arm. He's always game, willing to fight anyone. All his fights are pretty entertaining. I also want to flash back to the time he was booked against Sean Brady. Brady pulls out the week of. JDM accepts a regional guy coming in on short notice. So JDM is a ranked fighter willing to fight someone not even outside the ranking, someone who had never fought in the UFC before. JDM weighs in, hits 170, good to go. His opponent has medical issues. That fight gets canceled. He then agrees to another fight against someone off the regional scene the next week, weighs in again at 170, accepts that fight, and beats Basil Hafez. That was a fight where he pretty much had nothing to gain. He's, putting his spot on the line. If he even has any sort of adversity, it looks bad on him. And people still pretend like this is some sort of like robbery against Basil Hafez. If you actually value like effective striking and damage, it was not a super competitive fight. If you want to reward Basil Hafez for like minimal control time, like that's how you'd score it for him. But people still view that as like almost a negative mark on JDM when it was a fight he clearly should have won and it should not have been a split decision. So JDM, I think 100% deserves to be in here. Now the more controversial half of this BMF fight, Ian Gary. I know he gets a lot of hate. I know he brings a lot of it on himself. But when we look at the circumstances and the fights he has taken in his last two matchups, he deserves a ton of respect. First off, he put his undefeated record on the line in a short notice fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Bilal pulls out. They need a replacement. Ian Gary ends up being that guy. And you can say, yeah, it was a number one contender fight, whatever. They didn't even put an interim title fight on it. Like, the UFC can tell you it's for the number one contender fight. I guess they can also put an interim title and not give you the title shot. But like, for an interim title, I would get it. He didn't even need an interim title to accept that matchup. So I think he deserved and earned a lot of respect for taking that fight. But then he took another short notice fight against Carlos Prates where Prates was in training camp. Jeff Neal pulls out. They need a main event on a different card. And Prates has been in training camp, been preparing for a fight. Ian Gary takes that fight. People thought, Prates was like, the next super dangerous, like boogeyman of the weight class. And Ian Gary wanted another big challenge. And he went in there and he beat Carlos Prates. So I know people hate on him. Some of it's his fault, but you can't deny that the man is a BMF and he has taken back-to-back really tough fights in somewhat unfortunate situations and won 2 rounds against Shavkat and won the decision against Carlos Prates. Now at lightweight, I know we're getting that BMF fight between Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier, but I think if we were going to make like one singular one for lightweight, it would be the one we already saw, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. Both these guys spent their primes at 155. They're two of the most exciting fighters of all time, consistently getting into just these super fun wars. 1-1 between the two. This could be the potential trilogy. Obviously not going to complain about Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier, but if I had to make one fight for lightweight for the BMF, it would just be running that original one back. Then at featherweight, we have already also seen this fight. I have Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. Volk's just fought every top contender at 145. He's one of the few champions that feels like they're actually hunting the contenders, where it's like he's actively seeking out which contender he's going to set back next. And it seems like he actually wants the most deserving challengers. Like, it seems like he's almost been campaigning for Movsar to get the title fight. And it's like he's almost disappointed that he thinks they're going to pick Yair, who is less deserving, right? Because he wants the toughest test. He wants Movsar undefeated, opportunity to take that O. He deserves a lot of respect. Also, just super impressive. He lost the belt in the fashion he did and then was able to get it back. And then for Diego Lopez, I mean, he's just been doing BMF stuff his entire UFC run. He debuts on short notice against an undefeated Movsar Evloev and gave him the toughest fight of his UFC career. Then he takes a fight against Brian Ortega on 15 days notice. Already a BMF move, being able to make 145 on 15 days notice. He is ready to weigh in at 145, gets told Brian Ortega can't make weight. It's going to be at 155. He says no problem. They both weigh in at 155. Then Ortega has to pull out on fight day, and he agrees to fight a completely new opponent, Dan Ige, who's going to weigh in that day on like hours notice. Never seen it happen before. Diego Lopez takes the fight, no problem. I know he lost to Volk, but he's still going to be in these BMF discussions. And even after losing the fight to Volk, he's now willing to fight way down in the rankings against potentially the toughest guy in the weight class in Jean Silva, and he just doesn't care. The dude just wants to fight. I think this would be the BMF matchup. Then at Bantamweight, it's going to be another fight that's actually happened. Petr Yan versus Corey Sandhagen. Both these dudes have just fought like killer after killer, pretty much dating back to like 2020. Petr Yan's just shown a willingness to like fight down in the rankings when he really doesn't need to. He was the number 1 ranked guy in the world and agreed to fight all the way down to number 11 against Sean O'Malley. Then he loses a very, very close fight, or very, very controversial fight, a fight a lot of people thought he won. And so he could easily be like, all right, none of that, we're done with that. I'm not taking these lower ranked opponents anymore. Now he has the opportunity where he said like he could just sit around and wait for a title shot. He's number 3 in the world and is agreeing to fight all the way down at number 13 in a week and a half against the very tough and dangerous Marcus McGee. He's always going out there. He's getting in fun scraps. He's entertaining, and he'll fight anyone like he has proven. Then for Corey Sandhagen, I think he's kind of underrated in the BMF talks. In 2023, this guy was on a 2-fight win streak, could have had an argument to get a title shot. He agrees to fight the undefeated Umar Nurmagomedov, who's not even ranked inside the top 10. Umar pulls out of that opportunity, right? Corey Sandhagen's giving him this great shot. Umar pulls out. Sandhagen accepts a short notice replacement against Rob Font, despite him also being banged up going into that fight. And at this point, 3-fight win streak, could easily just be sitting around for the title. He agrees again to fight Umar Nurmagomedov in a main event. And I know he lost that one, but just the fact that he was willing to take that fight is crazy. We've seen this Petr Yan Corey Sandhagen fight. It was awesome. One of my favorite fights of all time. So we'll love to see this one get run back. I think you could definitely make a case for Merab to be a BMF. I mean, the dude had to go through a murderer's row just to get a title shot. He's super active. But from an entertainment perspective, I did have to give the nod here to Petr Yan and Corey Sandhagen. And then I hate to keep using matchups we've already seen, but I think we quite literally just saw the Flyweight BMF between Joshua Van and Brandon Royval. These are 2 guys who are just going to go out, stand and bang. These are the top 2 active flyweights in significant strikes per minute, so they both put on a crazy pace. We saw Joshua Van agree to a number 1 contender fight on 2 weeks' notice, just days after he had picked up a win. He was knocked out almost like exactly a year ago from when this video is going out. Since then, within like the last year, he has won 5 straight fights and went from unranked to number 1 contender, and now will be fighting Alexandre Pantoja for the belt. And then for Brandon Royval, also always game, arguably fighting like against his best interest in a way that's just more entertaining for the fans. He agreed to the first Brandon Moreno fight on shorter notice. He replaced Amir Albazi to fight Moreno again just 2 weeks after he lost his title fight to Pantoja. I mean, the fight delivered, potential fight of the year contender, so that would be my flyweight BMF fight. So let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with these picks? Do you have different matchups? Let me hear them down below. But thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.